I spent $150,000 and a year and a half of my life renovating my dream guest house. So when I came home from vacation to find my broke, wannabe influencer sister in law living in it, I was mad. But when she handed me a chore list that said I was no longer allowed in my own backyard, that's when I called my lawyer. Let me back up. My name's Sarah, I'm 32, and I live in Austin, Texas, in a house I bought 4 years ago for $485,000. It's nothing crazy, just a 3-bedroom ranch with a big backyard, but the reason I stretched my budget was because of the detached ADU in the back. For anyone not familiar, an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, basically a little guest house. Mine was a total teardown when I bought the place, but I spent the last 18 months renovating it. New roof, new plumbing, granite countertops, the works. I'm talking about $150,000 out of pocket. It was finally finished in June, and I was so proud of it I literally cried when the contractor handed me the keys. I never planned to rent it out. I work remote as a software project manager, and I make good money, so I didn't need the income. The ADU was supposed to be my creative space, maybe an art studio, maybe a home gym, maybe just a place I could escape to when I wanted to binge Netflix without feeling like a slob. The point is, it was mine. Now let me introduce you to the villains of this story, my brother-in-law Kyle and his wife Jenna. Kyle is my husband Dan's younger brother, and he's 30 years old but acts like he's still in a frat. He hasn't held a steady job in 3 years. I'm not exaggerating. He's one of those guys who's always got a startup idea or a business opportunity, but never actually does anything except mooch off his parents and post motivational quotes on LinkedIn. Jenna is worse. She's a wannabe mommy influencer with like 47,000 TikTok followers, and she treats that like it's a full-time career. She's constantly filming her 2 kids, Brayden, who's 4, and Mackenzie, who's 2, and she does these super staged day-in-the-life videos where she pretends to be this calm, zen, crunchy mom, even though I've seen her scream at a Starbucks barista for putting regular milk in her oat milk latte. They'd been living with Dan's parents for the past 2 years because they couldn't afford rent anywhere, and honestly, I felt bad for them. I'm not heartless. When Dan and I would visit for family dinners, I could see how cramped they were. Kyle and Jenna had the guest room, and the kids were sleeping on a mattress on the floor. Jenna would make passive-aggressive comments about how some people have big houses with extra space, while some of us are struggling. But I just ignored it. I worked hard for what I have. I didn't owe them anything. In late June, Dan and I planned a week-long trip to Sedona. We both needed a break, and I figured it was the perfect time to get away since the ADU was finally done and I didn't have any major projects at work. Before we left, I made the very stupid, very naive decision to give my in-laws a spare key to our main house, just in case of emergencies. I specifically told Dan's mom where I hid the key, under a fake rock by the front porch. I thought maybe she'd come by to water my plants or check the nail. Normal stuff. What I didn't know was that Jenna had apparently been obsessed with my ADU ever since I posted a couple pictures of it on Facebook after the renovation was done. Dan's mom told me later, after everything went down, that Jenna had been asking her non-stop about it. Was I renting it out? Could they stay there for a few weeks while they got on their feet? Dan's mom said she told Jenna no, that it was my property and she couldn't just offer it up, but clearly Jenna didn't care. So here's what happened while we were in Sedona hiking and drinking overpriced margaritas and living our best lives. Jenna convinced Kyle to drive over to my house, dig up the spare key to the main house, and then, and I still can't believe this part, she used that key to search my house until she found the keys to the ADU. I kept them in a drawer in my kitchen because, again, I'm an idiot who thought I could trust family. By day 2 of our vacation, they had moved in, and I mean fully moved in. Jenna posted about it on TikTok. I didn't see it at the time because I was on vacation and wasn't really checking social media, but my best friend Casey sent me a screenshot with a message that just said, is this what I think it is? The video was captioned, "Surprising my husband with our dream home." It showed Jenna doing a full house tour of my ADU, crying fake tears, talking about how God provided and how they manifested this blessing and how grateful they were to finally have a space for their family. She showed off the kitchen I renovated, the bathroom with the rainfall shower I picked out, the kids jumping on the queen bed I'd bought. There were boxes everywhere. They'd brought all their stuff. At the end of the video, she panned to Kyle standing in the backyard with a beer, and she said, "We're finally home, you guys. I can't wait to share this journey with you all." I watched that video 4 times on the plane ride back to Austin, and I swear to God, my blood pressure was so high, I thought I was gonna pass out. Dan kept saying, "It has to be a misunderstanding, and maybe my mom told them they could stay there." And I was like, "Dan, she said they bought it." We got home on a Saturday afternoon. I was planning to go straight to the ADU and confront them, but when I pulled into my driveway, I couldn't even park because Jenna's giant white influencer van, the one with her TikTok handle on the side, was completely blocking it. I had to park on the street. I walked around to the backyard, and there she was, Jenna, sitting at my patio table with a ring light set up, filming herself eating a smoothie bowl and talking to her phone. When she saw me, she didn't apologize. She didn't look embarrassed. She just waved and said, "Oh, hey, Sarah. We weren't expecting you back until tomorrow." I said, "What the hell are you doing in my guest house?" She laughed, like actually laughed, and she said, "Guest house? Sarah, this is our home now. We signed a lease." I'm not a violent person, but I swear I saw red. I said, "You signed a lease? With who?" She tilted her head like I was stupid and said, "With you." Well, technically with Dan's mom, but she said you approved it. "We're paying $500 a month." I looked at Dan and he looked like he wanted to die. He immediately called his mom and she picked up crying, saying she had no idea what Jenna was talking about, that she never told them they could move in, and that Jenna had been twisting her words. It was a whole mess. Meanwhile, Jenna just sat there smirking, and then she stood up and handed me a piece of paper. It was a printed list titled "House Rules and Chore Schedule." I'm not kidding. It said things like, "Sarah is responsible for mowing the lawn every Saturday," and "Sarah must keep noise to a minimum after 8 p.m. as the children are sleeping," and, this is my favorite part, "Sarah is no longer permitted in the backyard without prior permission, as it is not safe for the children to have random adults in their play space." I just stared at her. I said, "Jenna, this is my house." She shrugged and said, "Well, we live here now. And honestly, Sarah, you're being really hostile right now, and it's not a good energy for the kids." That's when Kyle came outside holding McKinsley, and he had the audacity to say, "Hey, Sarah, do you think you could pick up some more toilet paper when you go to the store? We're running low." I didn't argue, I didn't yell, I turned around, got in my car, and drove to a hotel. Dan came with me, and he was apologizing the whole way, but I wasn't even listening. I was already on the phone with my lawyer. Her name is Rebecca, and she's handled some property disputes for me before. I explained the whole situation, and she said, "Okay, here's the thing. Normally, if someone's living on your property, even without a lease, you'd have to go through the eviction process, which in Texas can take months. But in this case, they broke into your home using a key they were never given permission to use, and they're occupying a space they have no legal right to. That's criminal trespassing." I said, "So what do I do?" She said, "You file a police report, and then you let me handle the rest." The next day, I went to the Travis County Sheriff's Office and filed a report for criminal trespassing and burglary. I brought printed screenshots of Jenna's TikTok where she admitted they moved in while I was on vacation. I brought my renovation receipts proving I owned the ADU. I brought a signed statement from Dan's mom saying she never gave them permission. The deputy I spoke to was this older guy who looked exhausted, but when I showed him the chore schedule Jenna had given me, he actually laughed and said, "Ma'am, I'm gonna enjoy this one." Rebecca told me to wait. She said if I tried to kick them out myself, Jenna could claim I was harassing her or that there was some verbal agreement, and it would turn into a he said, she said nightmare. So instead, we set a trap. I checked Jenna's TikTok every day, and on Wednesday, she posted that she was going live on Thursday at 2 p.m. for a Day in My Life live stream sponsored by some organic baby snack brand. Perfect! Thursday at 1:45 p.m., I was parked down the street with Rebecca in her car. At exactly 2 p.m., two sheriff's deputies pulled up to my house. I'd coordinated the whole thing. They knocked on the ADU door right as Jenna started her live stream, and I watched the whole thing unfold from her TikTok. She answered the door with her phone in her hand, mid-sentence, saying something like, "And that's why we only use glass bottles. They're so much safer." And then she saw the cops, and her face just dropped. One of the deputies said, "Ma'am, we have a report that you're unlawfully occupying this property. We need you to step outside." You could hear her followers in the live chat losing their minds. The comments were flying by. "Wait, what? Is she getting arrested? OMG, is this real?" Jenna tried to explain that she lived there, that she had permission, and the deputy just said, "Ma'am, the property owner filed a criminal trespassing report. You need to come with us." Kyle came outside and started yelling about how this was illegal, how they had rights, and the other deputy told him if he didn't calm down, he'd be arrested too. Then they handcuffed Jenna on camera and walked her to the patrol car. Her phone was still in her hand and the live stream was still going. People were recording it, screen grabbing it, posting it everywhere. It went viral in like an hour. While that was happening, Rebecca and I walked up to the ADU and told Kyle he had 30 minutes to get his stuff and leave, or he'd be arrested too. He tried to argue, but one of the deputies said, "Sir, your wife just got arrested for trespassing. I'd recommend you go quietly." They loaded up what they could fit in the van, which was still blocking my driveway, by the way, and when Kyle couldn't find his keys, the deputy told him if he didn't move it in 5 minutes, they'd tow it. He ended up pushing it halfway down the street by hand, while Brayden cried in the front seat. It was honestly pathetic. Jenna got released a few hours later because it was a misdemeanor and they didn't want to hold her, but she had a court date. She deleted the live stream, but it was too late. People had already re-uploaded it to Twitter, Reddit, YouTube. She lost thousands of followers. Brands dropped her. Someone made a meme out of the freeze frame of her face when she saw the cops. She tried to spin it on Instagram, posting some long caption about how I was jealous of her platform and had weaponized the police against her family. But it didn't work. People found her old TikTok where she literally said, "We bought this house," and the comments were brutal. My personal favorite was, "You didn't manifest a house, you manifested a felony charge." The court case was quick. Rebecca showed up with all the evidence, and the judge wasn't having any of Jenna's excuses. She was convicted of criminal trespassing and ordered to pay me $12,000 in restitution for damages and legal fees. She also got 6 months probation. Kyle was never charged because technically he didn't break in, Jenna did, but his name is on the court record as being involved. They're living with Dan's parents again. Last I heard, Jenna's TikTok account is basically dead. She posts every once in a while but gets like 200 views. Kyle still doesn't have a job. And me? I'm sitting in my beautiful ADU right now drinking coffee and writing this on my laptop. I turned it into my home office. It's perfect. Dan's family doesn't really talk to us anymore, but honestly, I'm fine with that. If you can't respect boundaries, you don't get access to me or my property. And if you're dumb enough to commit crimes on a live stream, you deserve whatever happens next.